Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Lindsay.
We're back, episode 2 of Now and Then, your insight into changing regulations in Canada. So I would say, I don't know how many people checked out the first episode, but since we're still pretty new, I think we should introduce ourselves. So I'm Lindsay. I'm the VP of Marketing and Communications here at CHFA.
And I'm Ashley Cornell. I am the Director of Regulatory Affairs and Policy at CHFA.
And so together we're here to break down what is happening in the world of regulatory affairs and government relations. So you can keep on top of it because it is, we said this last episode, I think it's still applicable now, kind of a wild time. It was such a time to start a podcast on these topics, but they have such huge implications on people's businesses, especially in the natural, organic, and wellness space. So should we dive in?
Sure.
Okay. Like I said, wild times. It has not slowed down since we last chatted. So I think probably the biggest topic on the minds of so many people, both personally and professionally, is the tariffs. And so much so at CHFA, we wanted to really make sure our members felt really supported. So we've actually started working with a trade expert, Dr. Ann Penner. She is incredible. She's such a wealth of knowledge. And we actually did a webinar with her a couple of weeks ago. I was really impressed with the quality of the content. So Ashley, I'm curious, did you get a chance to sit in?
I did. Yeah. Yeah. It was really interesting. It's great to hear an expert in the field, because we're all kind of sitting around watching TV, reading the articles on the news, but to get the insight from an expert that has been involved in this area for a number of years, it was really insightful.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought it was a good mix of kind of some of the history and the context, as well as what we can do about it. So I'm just curious, what did you think the high level learnings were from the webinar? What did you take away? Was it more of that regulatory person?
I guess I'm sitting in and I'm listening from a regulatory lens, but I'm also listening from just any I guess Canadian going through this at the same time as everybody else. So one thing that is very clear from both that webinar and other things I've been reading is the U.S. tariffs are a reality. It's not an if, it is a matter of when. We've been hearing these conversations over the past month, but it's very clear now that the tariffs will be coming, and it will have impacts like higher costs on ingredients and products sourced from the U.S. There are very likely going to be supply chain disruptions because of it, and just an overall. There's going to be an economic impact, and that the Canadian dollar could drop to 65 cents on the US dollar within the year. So that really reduces Canadian purchasing power as well. So businesses in our sector, if we're kind of relating it back to impacts on our members, I think it's a good idea to assess where you're sourcing your ingredients from, find alternative suppliers. I'd say use this grace period that we've been given to diversify your supply chain and find alternative suppliers that can be used if is necessary.
Yeah, and I know we're working fast and furious as well to try to give a lot of tools and resources to help connect people as well. So I will give a shout out to our member directory. If you are a CHFA member, you can log in and try to find other companies because, yeah, there's a lot to tease out. It's crazy too. I think when we started this, it was like, okay, we've got a month reprieve, but now it's like March 4th is next week. That's coming. So it's kind of hitting us fast and furious. And like you said, it's a when, not an if, right? So I was going to ask you though, because I'm curious, and I think it kind of takes us into the next topic as well. There's been so much conversation around made in Canada. And that's, I see why we want to support and champion Canadian. But if I'm understanding correctly too, like that's actually that made in Canada claim. That's pretty, it has a definition. Like not anyone can just do it, or it can't just be because you're a Canadian company, right? Like there is parameters around that particular claim on package, right?
Yeah. I think it's a great opportunity for businesses that do meet their requirements to be able to call that out on packages. It's or even in advertisements. It's something that consumers are looking for right now. We can see that Canadian consumers are really banding together and trying to support locally made and Canadian made products. But there are qualifying factors going into those claims. So there's something where, you could say product of Canada, but that means essentially all, like everything about that product, 98% or more of the costs of producing or manufacturing that product has been done in Canada. So the ingredients are from Canada, the manufacturing transformation of the product has all been done in Canada. Made in Canada, like a made in Canada claim might be a bit easier to meet the requirements of. So that's where at least over half, so 51% of the direct costs of producing the product have been incurred in Canada. So we've provided some links in our written regulatory report that I think our members can use and see kind of where their products land. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. So I would encourage everyone to go through that and see what they are able to say and maintain compliance.
Yeah, because I think that's one thing I took away personally from the webinar too is, I mean, first, we don't want anyone Canada washing or claiming things that are inaccurate, but also when it comes to the tariffs, like Anne was really saying, CBSA is not just, or I guess the US Border Patrol, they're not just looking to see if there's a maple leaf on the package too. Like there's so much more that goes into it. So you really do want to make sure that you are being compliant and probably bigger than just the tariffs. But yeah, I think make sure you know what you're putting on label is accurate. And then if you are made in Canada, champion it as well, because people are looking for it. But lots of resources coming from us to help with that. We love helping with labels here. It's part of our charm. Okay, before we finish, and I just want to look at my notes because I want to make sure I get the names correct. But something else that has been happening in the US is really with the FDA. And so, like I said, let me make sure I'm getting my names. It was the FDA Deputy Commissioner for Human Foods, Jim Jones. He quit in protest over changes from the Trump administration. I guess like 100 people from that department were let go as well. I mean, there's been, again, lots and lots of jobs being terminated south of the border. But do you see anything more coming in the next few weeks, or kind of what's your take on this? It's pretty big and it'll have kind of, I think, impacts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was almost 100. Hard to say. I know, we're seeing mass terminations across many departments in the U.S. administration, and some of those terminations are being rescinded. I don't know exactly what's happening in this particular scenario with terminations being rescinded, but I know we're following this one a little bit more closely because of its impacts to our members. I know, a lot of our members, many of them sell to the U.S., so we want to stay on top of it. My understanding from Jim Jones, his resignation was, yes, in protest, but also just because he couldn't see with the terminations happening that he was going to be able to fulfill what he went there to do. I actually saw him speak at a conference in June of 2024, so not that long ago, and he seemed really well regarded by industry. Actually, I thought he showed a lot of potential. So, I think this is an unfortunate circumstance. It is, no matter what, going to be an unfortunate circumstance to lose food safety professionals.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that was underway with regards to food safety, but also adulteration of foods in the U.S. So this will impact that. And I think regardless of short-term impacts, I think in the long term, it might be, more harmful on the U.S. and the industry itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why you guys do a great job on your team keeping an eye on it, because I mean, we have, as much as we just talked about Made in Canada and the importance of that and championing our Canadian members and businesses, like we don't live in isolation. Like so many people sell in the US, they've got great customer bases in the US. So it's great that you guys are keeping on top of it, and also, showing up at these conferences where we can get a little bit more insight into how things are operating down south as well.
Yeah. for sure. And we'll stay on top of it.
We appreciate it. The non-reg person says this. Okay, so kind of bringing it back closer to home, I know it's been a busy time for consultations. I honestly, until I started working here, I don't think I even really knew what consultations were or how people contributed to it. So I think there's some great members we want to shout out because it's work to get some of them done. But so definitely Riverside Naturals and I believe Prairie Goodness, they weighed in, or at least you worked with them possibly, correct me if I'm wrong, on Health Canada's Division 24 consultation last month. You might want to add some color as to what particular consultation's about, because the number doesn't mean much to me and probably anyone listening. So anyway, shout out to them, but tell us a little bit about their contribution.
Yeah, so this was this consultation was about foods for special dietary use, and in particular, what falls within that is gluten-free foods. So we got to hear from a few of our members on what changes to these regulations could mean for them and how it would impact their businesses. So just to step it back a little bit, maybe, and kind of go over what consultations are, is an opportunity. So anytime the federal government, and in this case, we're often working with Health Canada, or other government agencies as well, but Health Canada on changes they're making to regulations. So regulations that impact our members in the food, natural health product, but it could be packaging as well. We're seeing changes in packaging regulations. So when changes happen to the regulations, that impacts our members in one way or another. And so we like to hear from our members and to know exactly how they believe it's going to impact their business. It could be very positive. It could be a very good thing for their business that a regulatory change is happening, or it could be something that a change is made in one area. And there may have been oversight on how it might impact something else, downstream effects. So we always like to hear from our members. We do have a good sense of how things might impact, and we're able to give a response on behalf of industry. But government likes those examples from industry. They like to see that. They like to understand. So it's really helpful when we hear from our members. To include those examples. And it can be done anonymously as well. Some businesses, don't want to draw attention to their business. But yeah, I think we always like input from our members,
Sure.
regardless of the consultation. So this was just one instance. And, we have other consultations upcoming as well. In the sustainability, environmental claims and packaging, plastics, those types of things as well. So that impacts, not just in this case food, but all of our members that package products.
Are you looking to hear from members for those specific consultations?
We are. Those ones, the plastics registry was actually submitted last week. So that's done for now, but from what our understanding is, they're going to do another round in April. So we'll be reaching out to our members for that consultation. And then, any other consultations, we'll within the next year, we'll be looking to reach out to our members for those as well.
I think it's important. Like you said, it's like the first person narrative. I don't want to say story because that makes it sound made up, but it's the story of how it'll impact your business, good or bad. And that's so important to have that voice in shaping the future of regulation. So yeah, stay tuned. If Ashley and team reach out for consultation help, definitely we want to hear from you.
Yeah. And I will say as well, we're here to represent industry. And we can do that without input. But having the ability to give us that input is also the ability for these companies to have some influence over the regulations that shape their industry as well. So use
it's important.
Yeah,
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so stay tuned. Lots coming. Obviously, we talked a lot about tariffs, about the U.S. today. I can't say it enough. I feel There could be a flight on Air Force One that drops something in our laps before this even goes to publish. But we're doing our best to keep everybody up to date. The CHFA written regulatory report will hit inboxes the last Wednesday of the month. So that's coming up really quick this week. I know there's some other great topics in there, like how the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, is launching phase 2 of their initiative to support import requirements for organic products. So I think a lot of great information for so many members out there. Also, Health Canada is launching their awareness campaign for the new front of pack label, which is really cool. And I know we're starting to see that roll out more and more. My sister actually texted me on the weekend to show me that she got something in one of her grocery orders with the front of pack label. So it's happening, it's hitting shelves, and people are starting to notice. So definitely we've got a lot of cool resources to help navigate that. And like I said, some more information in this month's reg report. So yeah, you'll get it in your inbox. Definitely check it out. We've got a lot coming up next month too. I think by the time we record in March, we're going to have a political update, which is going to be, who knows, leadership race. Are we going into an election? Some big stuff happening in March. Never a dull moment here. So thanks for joining everyone again, and check your inbox, and we'll see you next month.
Yeah, see you next month.